I really enjoyed this class. I loved spending time with you guys. You guys are awesome. You are all very beautiful. I really enjoyed my time in this class. Well, I guess the times that I was awake anyways.
When you become poet laureate, you get a cask of free wine every year?
So poetry, just as a bland medium, has kind of become less prevalent, at least in people's minds. And as an art, it's really grown larger than ever. Even the modifier poetic, it can just mean an emotional or imaginative expression. So, for example, if you can think of something other than poetic justice, I will give you $100. But I mean, that's not to say that written poetry isn't inapplicable to our modern times. You still see poetry a lot in just the basic written form as we would think of when we think poetry. Do you remember when we wrote our haiku?
Forced in your presence, I stand, endangered by you. I will not serve you.
Hello, do you have a mask?
Yeah, I'll have you know I know my rights, okay?
Now you could write something very intricate and careful and intentional, or you could just write something as absurd as Howl.
Hey Mom, have you heard of the Supercommunist pamphlets?
Aren't they digital now?
Who lounged hungry and lonesome through Houston seeking jazz or sex or soup.
Where are the saintly motorcyclists?
Poetry often survives within the medium of music as well, no matter how simple those lyrics may be. You could argue that music entirely is a form of poetry, because each chord progression, each riff, each pitch, each structure, it creates its very own language. I mean, even a few simple notes can be extremely emotionally impactful to some people. For example, but in those extravagant band names, there's still something to be said about them. Poets create difficult pieces that are difficult reads, and that's to challenge you to think. Maybe something like, what is a hydrogen jukebox, isn't really the question you need to be asking, but that difficult art is created so that you can grasp difficult topics. It's not feasible to just throw it out there and solve it like a math equation. That's what's beautiful about it. But I think that argument of definition of what makes a poem, I think it's kind of useless, because if anything, it just creates more restrictions as to what can be a poem. Except it's art, it's not a science, it shouldn't be classified, it shouldn't be labeled. It's creative, it's expressive, it's emotional, it's fun. You don't achieve these things with a solid label, and I don't think it's worth trying to figure out what everything's labeled, because it doesn't have to be solidly defined. That's a cute dog. So sure, call your Doja Cat songs poetry, call it poetic justice, who cares? It doesn't really matter how you define these things, because art is expression. It's reflective of the individual, and the individual is so complex that you can't put a name on it.